You are listening to the Unleashed and Aligned podcast, where we strip away the noise, unleash our truth, and align with our highest self. I'm your host, Felicia Dom. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome back to the Unleashed and Aligned podcast. I am here with Laurie Hardie. She is an author, a speaker, a coach, and the Seattle radio personality in all things podcast. She has 6 grandkids that call her Grandma Lala, 3 kids she raised on her own as a single mom. Laurie is passionate about leaving a legacy. She loves helping women share their story and their wisdom to enlighten the next generation and leave their legacy. Welcome to the podcast, Laurie. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you, Felicia.
So before we dive into all your wisdom, I know you're about to share so many amazing nuggets for the listeners. I would love to hear a little bit more about your journey and what brought you to the work that you're doing today.
Oh, my goodness. I worked in radio as a young person before I ever got married and had kids. And I always thought when I became a life coach, I thought the best way to get seen and heard would to get back on the radio. And so I went on this campaign and I was on all these different stations. Now, this was before podcasting was a possibility. It was made, if you were going to do anything, it was a CD or a tape. And so I kept getting on the radio, and it was so interesting because, and you probably realize this, Felicia, when we are coaches, we ask great questions. And so I would get on these radio shows and I would ask a question, and suddenly the show was all about them. It wasn't about me and my coaching. And so I thought, I got to get back on the radio. And so then I started that journey to get back on the radio. And because in my day, they paid you to have a show. Now I'm coming back after I've had my kids and they want you to pay to have a show. And I'm like, okay, to have a show. And so I did a couple of one-year stints as coach on the radio, but I got back and I got into traffic, which put me on every station in Seattle. And then I ended up at Warm 106.9. Now I'm at KIRO in Seattle. But the whole point was to be able to use my voice to help people who have been through things. My book is Did Not See That Coming, Hope for the Single Parent. My husband left me for a man, and this was over 20 years ago. It wasn't real common. People didn't talk about it. If we would have had podcasting then, and I could have reached out to women who had gone through this without slamming their ex, whatever, that would have been, so I feel like I was right behind the wheel on everything. So then when I got back into radio, then I started finally having a podcast. And that's what really, I thought more women need to have the opportunity to share their wisdom and tell their story.
Oh, I love that. So tell us a little bit about your podcast.
So I interview women, mostly older women, but sometimes not, who have had big interruptions in their life. Because what I have found is often we'll say, oh, I could never go through that. I could never deal with that. But when we have an interruption, women rise up, they step up and they do the next best thing. And what I'm finding is often the next thing is the best thing. Like they never would have gotten there had they not got fired, got sick, got divorced, whatever. And so I love sharing those stories of people and how they've walked through trials and come out on the other side even better. And some people have had a few interruptions and they keep rising up. They keep doing better. And I love that because sometimes we see women that get slammed. Maybe they become a widow and they can't get up. And I want all women to be able to get up and know they have the power and the courage inside them to do it with the help of other women.
Yes. Oh, I feel like there is a lot of podcasts out nowadays, of course, but there's so many, like you had mentioned, if there was just podcasts when you were going through your thing, because there's so many ways that people can find things and information. And I think it's such a beautiful thing to get out there. You helped me start my podcast, so I'm super grateful for you because I probably would have never started it. But it's that premise of helping educate, helping bring awareness, helping inspire other people. And it's so amazing that the work that you're doing. And I'm, yes, so grateful for you. So thank you for helping me also have a voice and get out there and leave my legacy.
And can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Because you did go through my program. I find that women they get worried. They feel like it's too much. And what I loved about you is you brought all your stuff we turned it into something, and now you have kept it going. What's that been like for you?
It has been so amazing. I literally encourage people when I have a lot of women come on my podcast. And before we do the interview, they'll tell me, like, oh, I've been thinking about starting. I'm like, reach out to Lori, start your podcast. I know what it's like to be in that stage of like scared or it's overwhelming, it's stressful, there's too much editing, all of those things that you help me just get over and work through. And yes, it's going to feel like that in the beginning and it does get better. And I still have, I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into a podcast. It's definitely not something that's like a side hobby for me. It's something that I'm very serious about and committed to putting out a certain episode a certain time. And those are things that I think need to be organized if you really want it to be successful. But I don't think you have to. I think that you can do it however you feel called to do it. And it can be, I had somebody on and I was like, you should just put out how you feel and what you're going through or these events in your life. And you don't have to share it with people. It can just be for you to look over at a later date in life. But I have evolved so much from the beginning to now, and I really crave to get better and to gain the knowledge through not only people that are on my podcast, but just through listening to myself back and trying to redefine and revise and grow. And it's been amazing. And so I am a huge advocate. If you are thinking about it, if you're unsure, if you are like, oh, I had this idea, but somebody else has done it, they don't do it like you. Like my podcast is probably similar to a lot of other people's podcasts, but it's not me. Yeah, or their podcast isn't me. It's going to bring your flavor, your personality. And I just think that it's something that you should at least try and see if you like it. And if you decide that you don't, but don't not do it because you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed.
Yeah, that's so good, and I love that you said yes. You had a big event, and within 7 days, I think 5 days, we got you launched, so you went to that event and said, "Hey, I have a podcast," and you were able to get people to download and listen, and one of the marketing things I've learned in my marketing class is that the more podcasts there are on one topic, that means that's what people are looking for. So it's really a good thing, it's not a discouraging thing.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. And I'm just a big advocate of not not moving or doing something because somebody else is doing it or they're some of the spaces they're like, "Oh, if you're a coach doing XYZ and I'm a coach and we have similar things, we shouldn't be on the same like platform or area or any of that." And I just don't believe in that. I think that everybody is so unique. I'm going to attract my people. You're going to attract your people. Our processes are going to be different. Even if we do some similarities, it's going to be different. And people, even the way you speak, it lands for people differently. And so I think that it's never an excuse because somebody else is doing something to not pursue something that you either enjoy, you want to see if you enjoy, or you're just inspired to try to create something. I say go for it.
When I wanted to get back on the radio with a coaching show, I had a friend who was a coach. She was a new friend, and we both found out that we were both coaches. And I said, I don't want to tell anyone. I want to reach out to radio people, but I also don't want to tell anyone because I don't want anyone to steal my idea. And she just put her hands out and she said, Laurie, there is room. Speak your truth, tell your story. There is room. And that has stuck with me all these years that there is room. There is never too much. And as an older woman coming up in radio, there was always one token woman. And so that was my mindset is I got to be good enough to be that one woman. And when she said that, it made me realize, first of all, we've come a long way. We have a long way to go. But second of all, there's room for all of us. I don't have to protect my wisdom and my words so that somebody takes it. Let's just give it and know that
Yeah.
there is a place for us.
I love that because I have felt that way when I first started. I have all these ideas and I'm like, oh, I don't want to say it to certain people. And then when I started saying it, my fiance was like, you shouldn't tell people your ideas because they might try to take them. Or we'll all share wisdom with somebody and then they'll take that and they'll create something. And he's, oh, they just took your idea. I'm like, they didn't take my idea. I'm sharing it and they're evolving. I'm evolving. Like we are co creating things together. And it's a beautiful thing. And I encourage people to do that. If somebody says something that sparks interest in you and you're like, wait, that's great. And you jump out and you start working on your own version of that. I think that's great. Like you said, there's room for everybody.
Yeah. And women collaborating, that was another thing. When I was starting out in business as an entrepreneur, there was always all the tapes were usually men. And
Yeah.
it's a solo. And what I've realized in business, we have to collaborate. And women, when we collaborate together, we come up with beautiful things. And it's not even ownership. It's like we may do something together and then one branches off, but it's all this shared thing that we want to pass on. And I love what you said about just record something, whether it's video or audio, if you never put it online, because it is your legacy. And my sister just lost her husband and
Sorry.
she took his phone and she carried his phone with her because he had videos of him with his
Mm.
grandkids. He had things that he had put on there. He wasn't like a really active, but he had things. It used to be in the old days, all you could do to hear your loved one's voice was call their old answering machine.
Yeah.
But now we have this incredible way to leave a legacy for our family when we're gone. If I got hit by a truck tomorrow, my family would be able to still watch me and hear me. And I think it would be very comforting. It's a legacy. And that's when you say, don't stop because someone else is doing it, or you feel like this is the one thing you probably heard this. Oh, I hate my voice.
Mhm.
Everybody hates their voice because it sounds different. And I work in radio. People that are famous that I work with, they're like, I hate my voice because when you work in radio, you get used to hearing it. But I always say, it's not about you. It's about your message. If you're
Yeah.
prompted to share your story, tell your wisdom, then it's not about who's going to listen or I hate my voice or I hate the way I look. You do what you're prompted to do and let the people who need you find you.
Yes, I love that. I had somebody on my podcast that I was like, "Oh, because they were gonna start a podcast, and I was like, "I love your voice. I could listen to you." And they're like, "Really? I hate my voice." And I'm like, "Doesn't don't even think about that. I like it, and it's unique. It's different." And like you said, sometimes I listen to an audiobook and I don't like the person's voice that narrates, but I'll listen because of the message that it is. I'm like, I'll put up with this voice for a little bit, but just like you said, yeah, it's about your message. It's not about you. And I think that's a good rule of thumb for anybody that's doing anything really, but especially for entrepreneurs. It's like when you start looking at yourself, that's when you're in the wrong area. You need to pay attention to like, how am I helping somebody else? How am I creating wisdom? How am I creating awareness for others to evolve along with myself? But put it back on that if you're thinking about doing a podcast. What is it that what message are you trying to get out there for the people? I think that's an amazing thing.
And it's brave. And I
Yes.
think sometimes we just, to be brave, reach out to those people that would encourage you, not the ones that will be like, oh, don't start something you can't finish. Someone that would
Yeah.
really encourage you. And like you said, you don't have to put it online. Just start trying it out, practice a little, see what happens. And the thing, and I bet you will agree with me on this, once you start doing it, yes, like for you, you do interviews. So it's more of a process. If you just did a little like 5-minute thing, you just open up your mic, you go. You get used to it. It becomes part of your routine and part of your habit. So it's not, oh, this big thing you've put on your plate. And actually for me, I so enjoy it that it's fun and time goes by so quick.
It's so true. When I first started, I was like, oh, what am I going to talk about? What is going to. And then when I started doing the interviews, I was like, this is so much fun because I was gaining stuff out of it. And I'm like, if I'm enjoying what they're saying, I know other people are. And then when I started putting down, okay, I want to do a podcast on this specific thing, and I do those, I write down a lot of ideas. And then when I have time to do it, I'm like, this is actually super fun. I'm more casual with it. I actually want people to like, "Oh, here's a little bit about my day or my week or whatever," because it's almost like you're creating your own little like friend group or something that
Yeah. I feel like I've made such good friends with the people I've worked with, people I've had on my podcast because I help people get in the top 5%. And so what happens is I get all these emails going, hey, you're in the top 5%. Can I be on your show? And I'm like, huh, I don't even know this person. But then I have them on and I just fall in love with them. And now it's this new relationship. And so I love the community that it builds and makes possible. And sharing stories to me is everything.
Yeah, I agree. So, let's dive into some of the questions. At what moment was it the like most pivotal when you realized you were playing small or holding yourself back?
I was a single mom and I lived on an island. And so there were certain things I just couldn't do yet because I wanted to, my kids wanted to stay near their dad. And for me to go and commute would mean hours and hours away a day. And so I made the decision to raise my children, to be there with them. And radio wasn't really a possibility. But the pivoting point was when my kids got older and I realized I could get back into radio. Now, we still didn't have mics that you could put on your computer. We didn't really have recording stuff, but I found a way to do some recordings on my computer. And so I thought I'll just get back on to radio as a DJ. And so do I started to do the things and put myself out there, and it was really hard because now I'm older. Am I
Mhm.
too old for radio? And I met with a friend every week, and she encouraged me. And I was working with Big Brothers Big Sisters, and I was in this family resource center, and so I told those ladies what I was doing. And I had one of the counselors go, "Don't quit your day job." And so that's why you want to be careful who you share with. But these ladies were really encouraging, and I applied for all these jobs. And then I was in the top 3 for this one really big station in Seattle. And I didn't get it. And so I called the ladies at the resource center. I said, I'm going to be there in the afternoon because I've got to meet with the bigs and littles. And I want you to know I didn't get the job. I'm so sad. And if you ask me, I'll cry. So please don't say anything until all the kids are gone. And so I got my stuff together. I went over to this resource center to meet with the kids. And I walk in and they'd rolled out this red paper and there was sparkles everywhere. And I thought, I am so into what I'm doing. I forgot someone's birthday. So I run to the back room and I'm go, what did I forget? Whose birthday is? And they go, it's you. We're having a pity party for you. And I'll tell you what, they got me coffee certificates, gardening things, and they encouraged me to keep going because I said, I'm done. I've tried all these things. I've done everything I want to do. And do you know the next thing was metro traffic, which I did not want to do, but I got in touch with them finally. I'd been trying and they hired me and I ended up on almost every station in Seattle. But I don't think had they not had that pity party for me, I
Love
would have had the
that.
courage to go on. And that's the power of women encouraging women. And to me, that was my pivot point because it was then that I launched and I went into my next, which was being back in radio and now teaching podcasting.
I love so many things. One that you said in the beginning is that you made the decision to like be at home, stay at home with your kids. Cause I think a lot of people, they don't realize that is a decision. You could commute or you could stay at home. Some people I think have that trap mindset where I'm like, I have to do this and this is just my life. But you said you made that decision and I love that. And the next thing I love is that you said you are going after something and you're in a later stage in your life. And I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm just too old for that. And I think that's amazing that you're like, no, I'm going to do it. And then how amazing that you had these beautiful women around you that were so loving and caring and supported you. And that is how I knew who you were. I was like, Laurie Hardie? What? I know her and listen to her. Like everybody in Seattle knows Laurie. I love that. And you got, like you said, you got on all these stations and it's like I think the universe just works in ways that we need to relinquish that control and that need for it to be a certain way and just allow because it knows what's best and it might not look like what we thought it would look like, but it always gives us what we needed. So that is so amazing. So to become the woman that you are today, the grandmother, the guide, the storyteller, what did you need to let go of?
This sounds so basic, but I had to let go of control. As a single mom, I had to really choose my battles. And I remember friends would say, I would never let my kids do this or that. But what I realized, kids are going to do what they're going to do. And the best thing we can do is to walk with them, support them, and have awesome conversation. And like you said, I had to let go of control. So when I got the job at Metro, which was not what I wanted to do, I did not want to be a traffic reporter, but I took it. I said yes. And I did everything there I could to make sure that I was not dispensable. And then what it did was it led me to the next. And in the midst of there is when I wrote my book. And I had to keep letting go. Like when I got divorced, I had to let go of that. I wanted to be the grandma and grandpa, still married,
Mhm.
having the kids come to my house. And now I don't have a home for my kids to come to. I had to let go of those things that I thought were like somehow we put in our mind the white picket fence. And that sounds so generic, but we do. We have these thoughts, and I had to take every thought captive, which is something the Bible says. And then I had to look at it and I had to say, is it true? So when I became a single mom, there wasn't a lot of single moms. And I didn't want to be that single mom, the one that was off carousing, leaving the kids at home, and they were drinking because you had booze in the house. I did not have booze in the house, and I did not drink when my kids were young, because if they got at a party and needed me to pick them up, I was it. I lived on an island. It was me. And so I made a lot of decisions, and I let go of a lot of things that I had assumed would be my life. And then I embraced where I was. I embraced being a single woman. When I took off my wedding ring, that was so hard because it felt like failure. So I had to turn that around. When my kids and I ended up living in a camper, I had to take the thought that I am a single mom of 3 kids living in a camper. What a loser, because that's how I felt, to I have my kids in amazing camp and they get to explore all day, every day, and I get to be with them. Even though I'm working, I'm with them. I had to rephrase every single thing and be my own champion, because when I wasn't going to go back to work on a typical work 9 to 5, because I had a younger child who couldn't be babysat. It was just, he was a challenge. And so I found ways to work at home when that wasn't a thing. And people would send me job interviews. They thought I was lazy, that I didn't want to work. No, I wanted to be everything I could for my kids to help them get through this really difficult time. And we ended up living on a camp for almost a year. We ended up at a horse farm, which I had been denied. The man said, I don't want no single mom in my ranch. My horseshoer happened to know him, and he called him up and he said, you're not going to find anyone better to help manage your property. And so I ended up on a 55-acre horse ranch
Wow.
with my 3 kids so they could roam and be free. But it was always because I kept reframing. I kept reframing.
I oh my gosh, so many good things. I love that you said you let go of that control with your children, because I think that is a huge thing, and how you said you walked with them and support them. Oh my gosh, that's amazing, because you're right. Kids are going to do what they want to do regardless, and they're going to figure out a way to do behind your back if you don't walk with them and support them. And the reframe, I heard, I can't remember who it was, but somebody was saying how it was a celebrity, and she said, I'm the queen of reframes. I didn't not get the movie role. Your movie's just not going to be as good. Or it's just like all of those things. And I think that's so important, because society puts these structures and these standards of what white picket fence, your grandma has the cookies out and grandpa's in the yard playing with kids, whatever that is. It's like we have it in our minds sometimes from childhood of what that perfect life is going to look like. And everybody has avenues. And if everything was perfect, life would honestly be really boring. And you'd probably be trying to get into trouble to stir up some chaos, because you want something like that. And I think that reframing what you have into gratitude and this, how amazing it is for you, like how your life is serving you instead of how it's keeping you stuck. Oh, such good things. Oh my gosh. You help women leave their legacy and speak their truth. What would you say to the woman who thinks her story isn't quote unquote big enough to matter, or who's still trying to find her voice after years of staying quiet or not being able to express her full self?
That's such a great question, Felicia, because especially as older women, we're told, when I first came out with the abuse I suffered as a child, my counselor said, do you know this is new? We're just now learning in counseling how to deal with this.
Mm.
And I was in my 30s when I finally was able to come forward and get help. And being silent serves no one. And the best thing that I would say is, can I tell 2 stories?
Yes, of course.
So my favorite story, I used to run a day center. I started a day center for homeless women. And there was this one little gal who had been clean and sober. She had gone through our program of our umbrella of the Hop Foundation. She had done the culinary program and the Queen It's a New Day program. And then she was volunteering with me she was getting drug court credits and everything, but she was volunteering with me. Now, I only knew her as clean and sober, and I adored her. She was younger, a young gal, and she was a smoker. So when the ladies would come in, they would want to go out and smoke. So she'd go sit outside, smoke with them. Now she's got a captive audience, and she was able to help them get them connected with resources. And so one day, this beautiful young girl, she is sitting with me in Esther's place, it was called, and this woman walks in and she had the biggest smile. Her name was Mindy, biggest smile, but she was filthy dirty. You could tell she'd been sleeping outside. And they see each other. So like I'm looking at them and they see each other and they start screaming and hugging. And you've got this girl who's clean and sober and getting her kid back and getting her life. And then you've got this person who just climbed out from probably a cave. And I said, "How do you two know each other?" And they looked at me and they said, "Jail. That's why our story matters."
Yeah.
And then we had what we called Testimony Tuesday, where people would share how they got out of addiction. It was usually jail or hospital. But we had this one volunteer who had never been in addiction, and we kept asking her to share her story. And she kept saying, "I don't have a story. I don't have anything, nothing." And I took her aside. I said, "You don't have a story?" And she goes, "No." And I convinced her to tell her story. So this is her story. One day she's at work and she hears on the radio about, I don't know if you remember this in Tacoma, when a bridge collapsed on a car, on a family. It just instantly killed the family. And they heard that on the radio. It was so sad and everything. Suddenly she gets a phone call. It's her family.
Oh my
It's
God.
her daughter, her son-in-law, and her 2-year-old baby,
Oh
grandbaby.
my God.
And so this journey she walked through of losing 3 people. And so now she's volunteering at Esther's, just being there for the ladies. So she gets up and she tells her story. And the women are bawling because they know her. They have no idea. And 3 ladies came up and said, "This is why I'm on the street. I lost my family and I can't
Oh,
cope.
yeah.
And you're telling me there's hope." Our stories matter, no matter how tragic, how simple they feel. And I always tell women, it's not that you're telling it for everybody. If one person responds. So when I first started this podcast, one of my first people was Molly, and she said, "We don't age, we season." And at 58, she'd been selling makeup. And so she had been the breadwinner in the family. The husband did all the behind the scenes things, her books, everything else, but she was the big breadwinner. This company went out of business. And at 58, she had to reinvent herself. And she just went, "You know what? I can do this." And she did. And my niece, who just lost her job because AI has taken it, she's a graphic artist, she's amazing, was making a ton of money. And she said, "Auntie, I listened to your podcast. I listened to Molly. And if she can do it, I can do it."
Oh, yes.
That's why our story matters. If it helps one person, is it worth it?
Yes. Yes. That's beautiful. And I truly believe that stories matter. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to start a podcast, is because I was so inspired by all these people's stories that they weren't telling it to inspire. They were just talking. And I was like, "Oh my God, you're amazing." And I was like, yeah, I feel like more people need to hear these things. I have a lady that she was supposed to be when I first started the podcast before I met you. I was trying to start it and I got discouraged, but I met her at it was like a sound bowl training. And she was recovering from addiction. And she went to an event with sound bowl and she felt very like therapeutic by it. And she started doing it. And then she started doing it at treatment centers, and she's been clean and sober. And that's what she does, is she wants to like basically help others. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, like you are so inspiring." And I just wanted like everyday people that have all these stories to share that are amazing, and they don't think that they're amazing. Like they don't think that their story is that amazing. And I'm like, "No, you don't realize how magnificent this is." And so I love that you shared that. It's
Yeah.
yes.
And I think that's why it's encouraging. We hear celebrity stories all the time, but also they're celebrities and we know they've got to set a certain hand up or certain. What about the scrappy women that just figure it out and make it? And that's who I want to hear from, because I want to know. I don't want to hear from somebody that says you can make it. I want to hear from somebody who made it.
Yes, yes, exactly. And I feel like real stories are the people that are still going through that journey too. Of course, they've had so many triumphs, but they're still, you get over one mountain and you're like, now here's the next one. And I love that. It's so encouraging because, yeah, we don't stop. There's no end. There's no like final destination to achieve. Once you achieve that one goal, you're going to the next and the next. And it's never a doubt of age or any of that. It's
Yeah.
just all
It
about evolving.
yeah, strength building and evolving. So can I share one more story?
Yeah.
So I worked at Warm 106.9 forever. I was part-time. I really wanted to be full-time. And I got this amazing offer at another station. I won't name it. And I went and I got full-time. It was amazing income. At the same time I started, the person who hired me went to a different station and the new people had already picked their team. So I was redundant. And so I stayed for as long as I could and then they let me go. And when I left, I felt this peace, which I didn't understand. And what I realized after I walked through it, I then went with the guy who actually hired me. Now I'm at his station anyway, doing fill in at another station. But what I realized was I would have never left Warm. I loved it there. It was comfortable and I loved what I did. But in order for me to do what I'm doing now and help more women and be more available, I needed to leave Warm and I wouldn't have. And so I would never have chosen to go to a place and then all of a sudden I'm like, I'm the one not picked. But it served me. It helped me. And now I'm in this place where I'm like getting to live my best life. And do I miss Warm? Not really. I loved it. Every day I sat down and I said a prayer of gratitude. Every single day I sat down in that chair to do my job. I loved it so much, but I never would have left had this opportunity not come up and then this slash, whatever you call it. But it served me so well. And it just what you were saying about how things happen. And sometimes if I think about it too much, I'm like, what if I was still warm? No, I am where I want to be. I'm available to my grandkids. I'm available to go fill in on a number one station in Seattle. I'm available to go do things. I love Seattle Storm. I go to all their games now. Before I worked nights and couldn't. So,
Yeah.
so amazing when we keep it's like strength building. We build, we get more strength, we build more. And now as an entrepreneur, I'm having to market, I'm having to do more is called of me and I'm stepping up. I'm doing it. Why? Because I know I can because I've been through so much.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's amazing. This question I'm super excited about. This is getting close to the end of our questions and I'm getting sad. But on the days when you feel disconnected or off track or just maybe heavy, what do you do to realign yourself?
That is such a great question because what I do every day is align myself. Now, I'm a morning person. I read this book called The Miracle Morning, but already was a morning person, but it's a great book. But I get up, I go swimming, and then I call it devotions for lack of better. I read the Bible, and then I also read a motivational book, and I just spend time quiet, which is really hard. I think women, it's harder to be quiet with our thoughts,
Yeah.
but I don't beat myself up. I just try to be quiet and I try to just meditate on whatever is coming my way. And that's when I get my best thoughts. And something that I've really learned is the self-talk. And I think as coaches, we've learned this. If something doesn't work out for me and I reframe it and I say, oh, this opens the door for more possibilities. So I take the time to reframe, take my thoughts captive and reframe them. But what I recognized is our body also holds memories. So sometimes our body is almost sabotaging us but our brain doesn't really know what's happening. And this was happening for me as an entrepreneur. And so when I recognized my body was holding something, and this was in my quiet time, I just asked it. I said, what are you afraid of? And what came up for me was as a child and then as a wife, every time I made money was taken from me. And then even as a single woman, when I would have an opportunity to make big money, someone would come in and divert it so that I wasn't able to get that. And my body was holding that memory and keeping me, no, you don't want to go and make money and be an entrepreneur because people will hurt you. And so it wasn't a thought, it was feeling. And so when I was able to recognize that and kind of unite it, blend it together, I was able to just then use my words and tell my body, oh, you're safe. You're an adult. You're in your 60s. You get to keep all your money or give it away. You get the choice. But it was so interesting to see that fraction. And often when I get clients and they'll go, I'm just off this month. I don't know what's wrong. And they'll say, oh, what happened in August? August? That's when my mom died. Like your body is keeping the memory, even though your brain has told you all the right things. You got to keep going. And so and there is a coaching program called Belief Coding that I've been looking into and following, and they really expand on this. But so when I have those days, I do not let them take a hold of me. If I need to go to the beach, I go to the beach. If I need to yell and scream, I yell and scream. I don't stifle my feelings, but also I don't let them take a hold of me and spiral me. There was one day where something I was expecting didn't happen, and I was really mad. So I let myself be mad. And then I was going to call friends and go, can you believe this? And I was like, no, I'm going to look at this as this is showing me my next path. And it's all really about the way we think and what we choose, because it is a choice. And I see people that let their illnesses and their problems keep them in a rocking chair at their old age, and they just retire and they sit. And I don't ever want to be that person.
Yes, and I love what you were saying about the body. I was just listening to Joe Dispenza, and I just love him. I feel like I could listen to him and then re-listen and learn new things. Like some of his books, I've literally had to stop and write stuff down because I'm like, wait, I need to conceptualize this better. But yeah, what you said about the body of how it will hold on to so many things, and those old patterns, it's like your nervous system adapts to them, and then something will trigger, and your nervous system, you like literally need to stop and regulate it and
Yes.
calm it down because it's so used to those unconscious patterns. So I love that you said that and you mentioned that because I think that is something, it does take a lot of work, and it is a practice, but it's so good when you ask your body what's going on and how you said, what are you afraid of? Because most of us, that's what it is. It's some underlying fear. I think that that's a great question and it's so wise. And I feel like some people will say, I don't know, I don't know. But when you're stuck in that, you're not actually being silent and staying still enough to really listen because your body does know, you do know. And
Yeah.
so I think that's a great practice.
And I don't know is a blocker. Like I've had clients that go, I don't know. I go, yes, you do.
Hmm.
I don't. Yes, you do. Just be quiet with yourself because our body wants to tell us, it wants to protect us. And if it's been hurt early on, then it's still a child protecting us.
Yes.
And when we can sync it up with our brain, it's so much better because then it all makes sense. And I think anybody who's been through trauma, there's a book called Blink. I think it's by Gavin DeBecker, but it talks about things we see in our peripheral. So we might get triggered, but we don't know what it was, but our eyes saw something familiar in our peripheral. So it wasn't up front. We weren't registering it with our brain, but our body was registering it. And so when we come in alignment with our body and our mind, and I always say, whenever a thought comes or something where I'm distressed, I just say, is it true? Because so much is okay, self-talk. I'm so dumb. And then I'll be like, is it true? No, I'm not. Maybe I was dumb then. Maybe that was a dumb move, but I'm not so dumb. It's like question when we really live in consciousness instead of just automatic response to everything, it changes everything. And then we learn to act versus react to
Yeah.
things. We take a minute and we just become better people.
Yes. Yes. I love that. And I love that question that you asked. Is it true? That is such a good question to ask, especially even in your like first stages. I've been doing this whole year has been really about, and I've always been working on self-acceptance, but this year I'm like, no. It's like I made a decision. You're radically accepting yourself no matter what. So anytime I'm beating myself up, I'm like, I'm my best friend. And so I'm not going to allow that anymore. And it's been amazing, like really amazing. Even if I do something wrong, I mess up, I'm like, all right, we messed up. How are we going to show up in our better self the next time that comes up in our beliefs and our values? And it just completely takes the weight off. And I'm just like, oh, this is refreshing. And I encourage everybody to look at that. I've had a coach that said she just decided one day that she was going to love herself no matter what. And I was like, at the time I heard that, it was like 5 years ago, and I'm like, "What? How can anybody do that?" I was so far beyond that, and now I realize it is just a choice, but you have to consciously make it every day.
Yeah.
So, my podcast is called Unleashed and Aligned, and I would like to know, what does unleashed and aligned mean to you?
I love Unleashed and Aligned because unleashed sounds like scary, like she's unhinged. And aligned is, oh, and I think that as women, it, we have been put in this box of being unhinged. If we get upset, we're called the B word. If men get upset, they're tough. But what it says to me, and I think for older women, is it is okay to be unleashed. We do not have to check. And we came from this generation that don't speak up, don't. And it's, to me, it's yes. Unleashed is yes. Just say yes. And until you need to say no. But also for me, that connecting my mind and my body and being aligned with what I'm doing, because we can do so much more. Look at me, I'm 66 and I'm not really starting this business because I've been doing it, but I'm doing it full time and I'm working with people in London and Australia and have open invitation to Hawaii. I'm going to help a woman launch her podcast in Kona. Like I am getting to do things I never imagined. And it's so wonderful to think it's not too late and I can do whatever I want because when we say can't and don't, our body feels it and it goes, okay, you can't. And I want to be a yes person no matter what. Someone wants to give me coffee and I don't want it, I'll say yes. Even if I have to dump it out, why not say yes?
I love that. It's been so amazing speaking with you today, Lori. I think that you are so inspiring. And I know everybody that listens to this is going to be like, all right, let's do this. I need to start a podcast. I got to get
Yes.
out there, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be a podcast, but just do what your heart feels called to do because it's always going to be, it's going to work out and it's going to be amazing. And if it feels like it's not working out, it's because there's learning lessons that you have not yet accomplished or gone through, moved through that need to be uncovered and looked at and released. I believe.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much for being on my podcast.
Thank you. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review so that we can connect with more people to develop our mind, body, and spirit.